What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Know Your Enemy. My name is Trendkill. Let's get it on. So in case this is the first episode of Know Your Enemy that you've watched, if you want to check out the Neath Guide, I go into extreme detail as to what this series is going to be about. Also, before you watch this guide, make sure you have a basic understanding of MOBA knowledge. Otherwise, go check out my beginner's guides. Those are going to get you caught up on some of the terminologies and things that I may use in this series. And so we don't waste too much of your time, let's go ahead and jump right into the guide. Today, we're going to be talking about Ymir, the father of the Frost Giants. Alright, now the first thing we do in these videos is we take a quick glance at what the gods are good at. You can see Ymir's damage is low, but his defense is high. That is because he is a guardian. He is supposed to have high defense. He's not there to deal a ton of damage. Now his mobility is extremely low because he doesn't have any dashes or teleports or jumps or anything like that, and his healing is 0, is completely off the grid because he can't heal himself or his team. You can see his utilities kind of hovering around average, but his control is off the charts. That is because he has a wall that can block your path, he has 2 slows, and he has a stun that stuns you for longer than 2 seconds. He is by far and large the perfect definition of a guardian. High control and high defense, that's exactly what you want in that role. Alright, so let's take a more in-depth look at his kit and talk about some things that you may have missed by briefly glancing through his abilities. First off, let's talk about Ymir's passive called Frostbite. This is what gives him the little bit of utility that he had on that graph. What Frostbite does is when Ymir hits you with one of his damaging abilities, those abilities apply a debuff called Frostbite. For the next few seconds, all of Ymir's auto attacks that hit you will deal double damage. Now this passive alone allows him to play outside of the Guardian role and actually have some success. So what you may see is an Ymir coming out of the jungle, freezing you, and then just smacking you with his ice mallet and actually dealing a considerable amount of damage. So understand that in casual games, you may see Ymir in the jungle or in the solo lane, and you may see him start to run around the map and really create some chaos for the enemy team. Another thing that we have to be cognizant of is the amount of crowd control Ymir has on all of his abilities. He's got a 6-second wall that blocks your path, a 4-second slow on his Glacial Strike, a 2.25-second stun on his Frost Breath, and another 3-second slow inside the large AoE of his ultimate. This totals an insane amount of 15 seconds worth of possible crowd control. Now if he breaks that up and uses his different crowd controlling abilities on different people, he can single-handedly change the tide of a battle with the sheer amount of chaos that he can create. So in the right hands, Ymir can be a bad mother-
Oh! Quiet!
And let's move on to the reason you guys came here to watch the video, the mechanics section. For those of you who are new to the series, this is where we're going to show you things that you need to watch out for if you are playing against an Ymir. Don't forget, if you are the one playing as Ymir, you can reverse this information and use it to your advantage. So for starters, let's talk about his Ice Wall. This ability is not to be underestimated. Yes, it does no damage, but it can greatly control a battle if used properly. So for my first tip, if you are playing a god that does not have a ground-targeted leap, meaning they can jump through walls, be extremely careful of running from an Ymir in the jungle. Now in the lane, the wall can also be extremely tricky to deal with. However, you have plenty of room to run around the wall. In the jungle, that wall will completely block off a path, and you're likely to find yourself in a dead end getting killed. Now another thing about the wall, and this is more of a tip for if you're playing Ymir, but you will also see an enemy Ymir doing this. If you want to get away and you want to be able to separate yourself with your ice wall, you can look straight down at the ground, cast your ice wall at your feet, and before it spawns, you will have walked past it and cut everybody else off. Now you can only do this if you have at least rank 2 of whatever type of boots or shoes you plan on buying. The interesting thing about this ability is that the more latency you have, the easier this trick is to pull off. So what I mean by that is if you go into the jungle practice area and you try to use your wall with rank 2 in boots, you will literally get stuck in it every single time. But if you go into an actual game, there is latency involved connecting to the server, and that latency is usually just enough to allow you to sneak past your wall. One of the very few instances where latency actually helps you. Alright, so moving on, we're going to skip over Glacial Strike, his second ability, for just a second. I first want to talk about his third ability, Frost Breath. Now this is arguably one of the best CC abilities in the game for two reasons. One, it's extremely easy to hit, and two, it lasts for 2.25 seconds, which is an insane amount of time in a fast-paced game like Smite. Now the reason I wanted to talk about Frost Breath before Glacial Strike is that my Glacial Strike tip actually includes Frost Breath in it. Basically, if you can catch somebody with your Frost Breath and freeze them in place, you are guaranteed to hit Glacial Strike. This is a deadly combo. At max rank in both abilities, Frost Breath will freeze them for 2.25 seconds, and Glacial Strike will then slow them for 4 seconds on top of that if you time it properly. That is 6.25 seconds of some sort of CC, assuming he doesn't then catch you with his wall and then catch you with his ultimate as well. Ymir has the capability to combo together upwards of 10 seconds worth of crowd control, which makes his kit one of the most controlling kits in the game. So while that's not a tip for just Glacial Strike, remember that that is an integral part of him controlling the enemy. So if I were playing against an Ymir, I would definitely think about having Sprint and or Purification Beads to cleanse all of the slows and the stuns he's going to be throwing my way. Now let's move back to Frost Breath. This is not a tip about the ability itself. It's about an item that gives Ymir more opportunities to use Frost Breath. Always be watching for the enemy Ymir to have an active item called Blink. This item allows him to teleport to you, and after that he's likely to catch you with a Frost Breath. Again, after that becomes the ability chain that may eventually lead to your demise. So understand that you are never safe around an Ymir with Blink. Now the last tip about Frost Breath, if you happen to be fighting an Ymir and you think he's going to freeze you soon, do not run away from him. Run around him. Stay at his sides and his back, because Frost Breath is a cone in front of him. If you happen to sneak past his side while he's getting ready to freeze you, you may miss the freeze and be able to leave him completely vulnerable. Now this is something you're gonna have to train yourself to remember, because it's not natural for you to want to run towards danger. Just remember that the further you get away from Ymir, the wider his reticle gets, because it is a cone shape, so the easier it is for him to hit you. Now last but not least, let's talk about his ultimate, Shards of Ice. There's really not much that can be said about this ability. First off, remember that he can cancel this early for reduced damage, so you are never safe in his ultimate. Make sure you dash or jump out or do whatever you can to get out of it so you don't take an insane amount of damage. However, if you find yourself caught right in the middle of that ultimate and you know there's a 0% chance of you getting out, instead of just running towards the edge of it, turn around and fight him. You may deal enough damage to kill him, or may deal enough damage that you're gonna die anyway, but maybe somebody else on your team can pick up that kill. Again, it's a brain training thing. You see this humongous high damage AoE starting to happen, and your instinct is to just run, but if you can't get away anyway, you might as well do as much damage as you can. And last but not least, a blanket tip for all of Ymir's abilities: make sure you save your dashes, your jumps, your teleports, your blink and sprint. Make sure you save everything you can to get away from Ymir. Do not waste your escape abilities on initiating a fight with an Ymir unless you know for a fact that his CC abilities are on cooldown. Otherwise, you run an extremely high risk of getting comboed to death. So there you have it, guys. Now hopefully you know how to react when you see an Ymir chillin' in lane. Now if you see an Ymir, you won't freeze up. No. Cold ice, frosty. There's a f***ing joke here somewhere. Anyway, again, my name is Trinkill. Make sure you come check out the series next week, where we're gonna be talking about Ra, the Egyptian sun god.